You know, we all think of multi-factor authentication as one of our absolute best defenses. But what if I told you that attackers are just walking right past it every single day? Today, we're going to explore that critical gap, where MFA stops and credential abuse really starts.
This quote right here, it just nails it, doesn't it? You've done everything right. You rolled out MFA, you checked the box, but attackers are still waltzing in with plain old stolen credentials. How? Well, that is exactly what we are here to break down.
I mean, this is the question we all ask, isn't it? You've got that code popping up on your phone. You feel secure. You should be totally safe from password attacks, right? Well, as we're about to find out, the real answer is not quite.
Now, to be super clear, the technology itself, MFA, is solid. It's great. The problem isn't that MFA is broken. The real issue is coverage. See, MFA works beautifully for all your cloud apps, the stuff that connects to Intra ID or Okta. But a whole lot of traditional Windows logons, they don't talk to those systems at all. They just bypass MFA completely.
Here's the best way to picture it. Your network is a fortress, and you put all your strongest defenses, your MFA, right on the main gate. It's heavily guarded. But attackers, they aren't going to try a full frontal assault on the main gate. Come on. They're going to be sneaking around the side, looking for all those unguarded doors and secret tunnels you forgot about.
So let's pull back the curtain and take a look at the attacker's playbook. We are going to walk through 7 of these unguarded side doors that exist in pretty much every typical Windows environment.
First up, this is the door that millions and millions of users walk through every single day, and it's almost always left wide open.
So when a user sits down and logs into their Windows PC, that login request usually goes straight to their local on-premise Active Directory. It never even gets close to the cloud where your MFA policy actually lives. And what does that mean? It means an attacker with a valid password could just walk right in. No MFA prompt is ever triggered, nothing.
Okay, the second path. This one is an absolute favorite for attackers who are trying to move around inside a network.
RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. Yeah, it's incredibly useful for admins, but it's also a giant, glowing target. If an attacker is already inside your network, they can often connect directly to a server using RDP with nothing more than a username and password. And just like that interactive logon, this authentication gets handled by Active Directory and completely sidesteps your cloud MFA.
Let's move on to our third unguarded door. And this one? Oh boy. This one involves a legacy protocol that just refuses to go away.
This vulnerability comes from an old protocol called NTLM. It's ancient, but it's still active in so many networks. And its biggest flaw is that it's vulnerable to something called a pass-the-hash attack. Now get this, an attacker doesn't even need your password. They just need its scrambled cryptographic hash. If they can grab that hash and present it, the system just lets them in. MFA is completely irrelevant.
Okay, so you're thinking NTLM is old and weak. We use the modern protocol, Kerberos. Well, it has its own issues.
See, attackers are always adapting. With the more modern Kerberos protocol, they figured out they don't need the password, they just need the ticket. After a user logs in, an authentication ticket gets stored in the computer's memory. If an attacker can steal that little ticket, they can impersonate that user for hours, sometimes even days. No password required.
All right, our 5th vulnerability is a classic. It's all about those accounts that live on the machine itself.
Local admin accounts. Every single Windows machine has them. And here's the real danger. They authenticate locally. They don't check in with Active Directory, they don't check in with your cloud provider. So if an attacker gets just one of these passwords, and it's been reused on other machines, which happens all the time, they have just hit the absolute jackpot. They can spread across your network like a wildfire.
Let's look at path number 6. This one is really sneaky because it leverages the very protocols that make a Windows network, well, work.
SMB. It's the protocol that lets you access file shares like the C$ drive in a remote server. Attackers with a valid set of credentials absolutely love this because internal network traffic is so often treated as trusted. MFA is almost never applied here. For an attacker, it's basically a superhighway to move from one compromised machine to the next.
And finally, the 7th unguarded entrance. I like to think of these as the ghost accounts of the network.
Service accounts. They can be the master keys to your kingdom, and they're often just left lying around. These accounts are used by applications, not people, which is exactly what makes them so dangerous. They're automated, so you can't use MFA.
Their passwords often never, ever expire. They can have huge permissions, and maybe worst of all, they are very rarely monitored.
Okay. I know that was a lot of bad news. A lot. But don't worry. It's not hopeless. Not at all. Now we're going to pivot and look at 4 key strategies you can use to start locking these side doors.
The solutions really start with getting the fundamentals right. First, you've got to enforce truly strong password policies in Active Directory. I'm talking long passphrases. Second, and this is crucial, you have to continuously block known compromised passwords. Third, it is time to actively hunt down and reduce your reliance on those legacy protocols like NTLM. And finally, you have to start treating service accounts like the high-risk assets they are. Audit them and strip away any permissions they don't absolutely need.
I want to zero in on that second point about compromised passwords. Just take a look at this number for a second.
5.4 billion. That's how many passwords are just out there, available for attackers to use in public breach datasets. You see, credential theft isn't always some brilliant, sophisticated hack. A lot of the time, it's just about trying a key that is already known to work. If you can block your users from setting a password that's on this list, you shut down a massive, massive avenue of attack.
All right, we've seen the gaps and we've looked at some of the fixes. This really brings us to the final check, the one question you need to be asking yourself.
And really, this is the big takeaway. It is fantastic that your main gate is secure with MFA. That's great. But security is only as strong as its weakest link. So you need to take a hard look at your fortress and ask yourself, what about the side doors? Are they wide open? Because I can promise you, that's exactly where the attackers are looking right now.